You remember blow pops?
Oh my God, yes. You know, I wasn't allowed to have those for the longest time.
Oh, yeah. Well,
because I wasn't allowed to chew gum.
Yes. But that's why they were superior,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I want gum in the middle.
It was forbidden.
Wait, what was your go-to flavor of
watermelon.
Watermelon,
Yeah.
good pick. What would you think mine would be?
Is it the cherry one?
Sour apple.
I forgot about that kind.
And it would like cut up your tongue.
Those hurt like shit.
It hurts
They
so
hurt
good.
so good. They really did. I forgot about that.
I'm like,
Oh my
cut me,
God.
daddy.
Yes, I've had the odd complaint, but on the whole, I've been a saint. To those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello and welcome to Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I'm Caroline Ameti.
And I'm Connor Perkins. This is the Disney podcast for grown-ups where we shoot the shit about Disney the way that you do with your friends. Welcome to all of our returning listeners. It is great having you back here with us. And welcome to any new listeners. Thank you so much for hitting play. Please also remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way all of our episodes download to your device. You don't miss out on anything. And then everybody, once we get to the end of this episode, or right now if you're feeling it, please remember to hit 5 stars and leave a written review or a comment wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way we're seen in search results. We get suggested to people. Other people will see your comment and then they'll be like, oh my God, I have to listen to this podcast. And you did that. So thank you for taking the time it takes to do that.
And shout out to someone that Connor told me about who mentioned us in a comment. What was that, on TikTok?
Yeah, I was on TikTok.
Yeah, people were asking about Disney podcasts and somebody kindly mentioned us in the comments. So like that kind of thing goes such a long way and we appreciate it so much.
I know. I was like,
it's so
honored.
nice. Yeah, it really is nice.
All right. So this is our Showdown episode. Finally.
Yeah.
Caroline, tell everybody what we're doing.
We are doing a listener favorite, which is another Princess Showdown. So previously, we have done Snow White versus Aurora. We have done Ariel versus Moana. And today, our Princess Showdown is Rapunzel versus Jasmine. And this actually came from a listener suggestion kind of a while back on Instagram. And they made the perfect connection. They're kind of the two, you know, princesses in a tower, for lack of a better phrase, kind of
bred in captivity.
Yep, kept behind palace walls or walls of a tower. So we thought they'd be a really interesting showdown. I am so interested to hear how this goes because our previous 2 princess showdowns have ended in complete disagreement between the two of us. I really don't know how this is going to go. I think this one will be a bit.
One's going to go.
I think this one's going to be really difficult.
This one is.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me right now.
Because usually by the end of writing my notes, I've got a sense of where I'm falling and I don't have one. So
I agree. And what's going to make it even more interesting is because we use the Dream Big Princess characteristics to, you know, see how well these princesses are exemplifying those characteristics. These two actually share one of the same characteristics.
Yes. Which we didn't know. And then we looked them up.
Yeah, we didn't know ahead of time.
Yeah.
So they really do go head to head in this. So obviously we are going to be talking about Aladdin and Tangled in this episode. And there will be spoilers ahead if you have not seen either of these movies. So if you haven't seen them or you want a quick refresher, why don't you just pause this episode? We'll be waiting for you and then go check them out on Disney+. And then we'll be here for when you get back. And welcome back. All right. So the way that we do these princess showdowns is we have a couple criteria. We have the Dream Big Princess characteristics. We have the character design. And then how much they inspire us, our role models, sort of thing. So we're looking at them through those 3 perspectives. So for Jasmine, her Dream Big Princess characteristics are confident, compassionate, and adventurous. And then Rapunzel, her dream big princess characteristics are creative, positive, and adventurous.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, before we get into it, let's do some background information because that's how we do things here.
Absolutely.
I'll start with Aladdin because it came first. So, basic information about Aladdin. It was released on November 11th, 1992, produced and directed by John Musker and Ron Clements. It is based on Aladdin and the Magic Lamp from 1001 Nights. The screenplay is by John Musker, Ron Clements, Terry Rossio, and Ted Elliott. And the story, so when I did my rant about Abu, I said that there were 16 people who worked on the story for this film. And if we did a showdown for Aladdin, I would take the time to name them all. So as promised,
Name them.
here are all
Name
16
'em.
people who worked on the story. Bernie Mattinson, Roger Allers, Don Yippas, Kevin Harkey, Sue Nichols, Francis Glebus, Daryl Rooney, Larry Leaker, James Fuji, Kirk Hansen, Kevin Lima, Rebecca Reese, David S. Smith, Chris Sanders, Brian Pimentel, and Patrick A. Ventura. And Aladdin stars, among others, Scott Weinger as Aladdin, Linda Larkin as Princess Jasmine, Robin Williams as the genie, Jonathan Freeman as Jafar, Gilbert Gottfried as Iago, and Douglas Seal as the Sultan. And because this is Princess Jasmine, I will note that the singing voice of Princess Jasmine is none other than Lea Salonga.
Ooh, yeah.
The budget for this film was $28 million, and the box office was a whopping $504.1 million.
Wow.
The reception, so the film opened to many positive reviews, and it quickly overtook Beauty and the Beast as the highest grossing Disney film at the time. It received a very, very rare A+ rating from CinemaScore, and an average review from critics on Rotten Tomatoes is 8.4 out of 10, which is pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
The film has definitely not gone without criticism, though, especially the use of ethnic stereotypes in certain character designs and the writing, especially when contrasted against the portrayals of Aladdin and Jasmine in the film.
Mm-hmm.
The film won the Annie Award for Best Animated Feature. At the Golden Globes, it was nominated for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song 3 times for A Whole New World, Friend Like Me, and Prince Ali, winning the Golden Globes for Best Original Score, Best Original Song for A Whole New World, and a Special Achievement Award for Robin Williams. And then Aladdin was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, Best Original Score, Best Original Song twice for A Whole New World and Friend Like Me, Best Sound, and Best Sound Effects Editing, and it took home the Oscars for Best Original Score and Best Original Song for A Whole New World. And then a little brief plot synopsis. It's the same one that I did in my Abu rant. Aladdin is a lovable street urchin who meets Princess Jasmine, the beautiful daughter of the Sultan of Agrabah. Tricked into entering the mysterious Cave of Wonders, Aladdin stumbles upon a magic oil lamp that unleashes a powerful, wisecracking, larger-than-life genie. As Aladdin and the genie start to become friends, Aladdin uses his 3 wishes and the advice of the genie to woo the heart of Princess Jasmine. But when the evil sorcerer Jafar plots to overthrow the Sultan and rule Agrabah himself, Aladdin must soon embark on a dangerous mission to stop him. So that's Aladdin.
Woo! All right, let's talk about Tangled. So, Tangled was released on November 24th, 2010, written by Dan Fogelman of Cars, Bolt, and This Is Us on TV fame. If you watch This Is Us, there's also the Mandy Moore connection there, of course. It is directed by Nathan Greno and Byron Howard, and of course, based on Rapunzel by the Brothers Grimm. It is produced by Roy Conley with executive production by John Lasseter and Glenn Keane. The score is by the one and only Alan Menken, with music by Alan Menken and Glenn Slater doing the lyrics. The budget was $260 million, with a box office of $592.5 million. It stars, among others, Mandy Moore as Rapunzel, Donna Murphy as Mother Gothel, Zachary Levi as Flynn Rider, among others. As far as the reception goes, Tangled has a 7.7 on IMDb. A little low.
That's rude.
A little low. Yeah, it just is
That's
not
very
right.
rude.
Yeah, no. It has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's Better. That's better.
Better.
It was nominated for 2 Golden Globes for Best Animated Feature Film and Best Original Song for I See the Light, and was nominated for Best Original Song in the Oscars for I See the Light.
The Oscars craziness that happened, it's just a whole bunch of bullshit because they weren't even nominated for Best Animated Feature, which is incorrect.
What?
And I know Toy Story 3 was out the same year and everything, but sure. But then Best Song, they went to the end song of Toy Story 3 and not I See the Light. And if I asked you to name the end credit song of Toy Story 3,
I could not tell you. No.
Exactly.
I could not.
If I said name the love song from Tangled, what is it? I See the Light.
Well, that's what I was just thinking when you were talking about A Whole New World. I'm like, these films are also basically like the best 2 Disney love duets, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say about Tangled in general is I feel like Tangled was more of like this slow burn. It is now so iconic,
sleeper.
But it was a sleeper. Yeah, even for me, I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it when it came out.
Nor did I.
On DVD.
But then we did see it in theaters when it came back out for the Dream Big Princess campaign.
We sure did. We sure did. A little quick thing about the development of the film. So like many fairy tales, the story of Rapunzel had many almost moments with the Disney company. Walt Disney himself had toyed with turning the fairy tale into a full-length animated film, but it was shelved largely due to the limited nature of a story that takes place within the confines of a single tower. The iteration of the story that became Tangled started when Glenn Keane pitched the idea to Michael Eisner in 2001. Eisner approved it, but he requested that the film be computer animated. Now, some of you listening might remember hearing a bit about the first iteration of the film, Rapunzel Unbraided. It was originally set to release in 2007, and I feel like I remember hearing about it, maybe seeing 1 or 2 things about it.
I remember there was like this
really
before
short
it got
teaser.
changed to Tangled. There was this short teaser where it was just a tower and you heard voices.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yes, thank you. I thought I was making it up.
It was just the tower and you heard voices. And I was like, what is this?
Yes, I thought I was making it up. Yes. That version of the story would see modern day teens ending up in Rapunzel's world and basically inhabiting the bodies of the princess and her prince. And the tone of that film was going to be more like Shrek, like irreverent, modern, clever, and Kristen Chenoweth was among the actors in talks to voice Rapunzel in that version of the story.
Very interesting.
Interesting, right? I know. Feels very Enchanted.
Yeah. I'm like, that's what I was going to say. I'm like, I feel like Enchanted ended up sort of scratching that itch. So I'm glad that Tangled ended up being what it did.
So glad. And I think Glenn Keane was feeling the same thing.
Yes.
Because this is what he said about the movement of the film from that style to the film we know today. Quote, "It was a fun, wonderful, witty version, and we had a couple of great writers, but in my heart of hearts, I believed there was something much more sincere and genuine to get out of the story. So we set it aside and went back to the roots of the original fairy tale." End quote. And to that I say, bravo. Thank you for that.
Glenn Keane is my hero. He is, it's such a loss that he's no longer a part of the Disney company. He's just a genius. Like his heart is all over Tangled. And you can tell the warmth that comes from this film. That's Glenn Keane.
Yep, I totally agree with you. And I'm just so glad that he stayed connected to this project because it kept getting pushed and then it was shelved briefly in January 2006. But then when John Lasseter and Ed Catmull started leading Walt Disney Animation, they asked Glenn Keane to keep working on it. Then eventually Byron Howard and Nathan Greno took over as the directors, but Glenn Keane stayed on as executive producer and the animation supervisor. And you totally feel it. I won't give everybody a plot synopsis exactly because you're probably familiar, but I'll just give you a synopsis basically of what do we know about Rapunzel specifically. So Rapunzel is a princess, unbeknownst to her, of the kingdom of Corona. Her hair contains healing powers of a magical flower whose power is derived from the sun because her mother was healed by the flower while pregnant with Rapunzel. Mother Gothel, who is using the flower to remain young, tries to cut and keep some of baby Rapunzel's hair in order to retain the power of the flower, if you will. But Rapunzel's hair turns brown and powerless when it is cut. So Gothel just kidnaps her outright and hides her in a secluded tower, posing as her mother. We meet Rapunzel in this film right before her 18th birthday as she asks Gothel to finally leave the tower to see the yearly floating lantern display that she does not know is a tradition the king and queen continue each year in remembrance of her. Rapunzel doesn't know any living creatures aside from Mother Gothel and her chameleon, Pascal.
It's just so good. All right. So let's talk about these princesses. So we're going to start by going through their different characteristics. We'll start with Jasmine, then we'll hop over to Rapunzel. Then we'll do design for Jasmine, design for Rapunzel, and then role model, inspiring stuff for each. So let's start with the first characteristic for Jasmine, confident. And so confident means certain, full of conviction, assured of oneself and one's abilities. I think this is an invaluable and underrated characteristic for the Disney Princess Collection.
Yeah.
Jasmine, throughout the entire film, is pretty unwavering, and it's really refreshing to see. She knows herself, what's important to her, and what she is capable of. She has very clear beliefs that guide her, and it's not just in what she does, but how she does it. Throughout this movie, she has exactly zero problems speaking truth to power and challenging the men who hold power in this male-dominated world. On multiple occasions, she goes toe-to-toe with Jafar, calling him out on things that he does that are wrong. In her first scene, we see her straight up telling her father, the Sultan, the law is wrong. We get Jasmine commanding the guards when they come to arrest Aladdin and pushing back against the head guard Razul when he's trying to justify his arrest, saying it is by Jafar's orders. She's like, I don't fucking care about his orders because I'm the princess and I'll talk to Jafar myself about this. Don't think I won't.
Yes, she does.
And then we have the fantastic scene where she sees Aladdin, Jafar, and the Sultan all talking about Jasmine and her marriage arrangements. And she comes right in and she speaks to the Sultan, his royal advisor, and a supposed prince, and she chastises them. She has that confidence in herself and what she is saying to dress these men up and down, saying, quote, how dare you standing around deciding my future? I am not a prize to be won. It's a badass moment to top a bunch of badass moments of Jasmine unabashedly challenging patriarchal structures and the men in her life that reinforce them, regardless of her personal feelings for these men. In terms of her abilities, like being confident in her abilities, again, she knows what she is good at. She tells Aladdin that she is a fast learner when she full-on pole vaults across rooftops.
I have that literal thing down also. It made me laugh. Oh my gosh.
Like, and the grace in which she does it, a gazelle. And she's never done this before. Also, the way that in which she like very expertly climbs up that tree and over the walls, like with the help of Raja, I'm like, who are you?
Grace and beauty.
She is highly intelligent and she is an expert in bullshit, knowing both how to detect it and how to turn it on herself to get what she needs.
Oh, it's so true.
She throws herself into 2 improv scenes over the course of the film. The first when she is in the market and working with Aladdin to get out of the accidental theft of the apple. And the second when she completely on her own accord decides to pretend that she has fallen in love with Jafar to distract him while Aladdin attempts to steal back the lamp. She knows exactly how to play up these moments, where to pull back, and where to lean in with the bullshit to get what she needs. And with regard to detecting bullshit, I mean, she sees right through these supposed suitors and even correctly detects and challenges Aladdin's own lies to her as Prince Ali. She disarms him with her words on the balcony, and in doing so, chips away at his chauvinistic facade to reveal that there is a deeper lie happening. And then, even after the big love scene, after A Whole New World, she is confident that this is Aladdin and that he is lying, and she fucking calls him out.
She does.
She lays a trap with a comment about Abu, which of course Aladdin falls into. And then she says, quote, did you think I wouldn't figure it out? Did you think I'm stupid?
So good.
This is the queen of the bullshit meter, and she fucking knows it. And I stan that kind of confidence in my Disney princesses. Okay, and then I'm even looking for places in the film where maybe her confidence is unfounded or gets her into trouble or isn't executed very well. And honestly, I kind of struggle to find it. She's consistent in the way that she is confident. We never have those moments where she's like, I'm not sure of myself, or, oh, Mr. Man, what do we do? Like, Jasmine doesn't play it that way, and I love it. And this may be one of my favorite Dream Big Princess characteristics that we have talked about in these Princess Showdowns, because it is so important, and they picked exactly the right princess to assign this trait to.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I was trying to look for places because I said a lot of the same things as you in terms of just the amazing things that she does with her confidence. And I was looking for places where maybe it would be misguided, and it never really is, because it's like,
No.
even maybe she's a little bit naively confident when it comes to venturing into the marketplace. Like, she truly has no idea what she's about to find there. I do think she gets a lot more than she bargained for, and is pretty surprised by how harsh Agrabah can be. But even though she's privileged, she does allow Aladdin to take the lead. Like, she doesn't have so much pride and overconfidence that she doesn't know when she's in a little bit over her head. And again, launches into this improv. There you go, another improv where she's just like, "Yep, I'm so confused." Like, she's the queen of yes and.
I literally have that phrase later. I'm like, she's the queen of yes and.
I have the pole vaulting moment as well because it cracked me up. I also think a really great sign of her confidence is the fact that Jafar calls her a shrew at one point. And know when a man calls a woman a shrew, that it means that her strength and conviction inconvenience him at the very least and threaten his fragile masculinity and power at the very best. And he is so bothered by her.
Yes, he's so bothered by her. Like, when you look at Jafar, the threat that he is feeling is not coming from the Sultan. It's from Jasmine.
And it's not coming from really Aladdin. I mean, it's coming from Aladdin inadvertently, but the person who is going toe-to-toe with the villain in this film is Jasmine.
And she's the biggest threat because the Sultan dies, it's her.
Right.
And all of this attention is about her marriage so that the Sultan has a legacy that's like secured and everything. So the biggest threat isn't the Sultan who already has the power. It's the person next in line.
Oh, yeah. I also thought it was pretty astounding that she has so much confidence in her ideas, especially for these reasons. One, she says to her father, she doesn't have any friends.
She doesn't have friends.
And her life is just boring. It's stifling. It's lonely. Honestly, almost more so than Rapunzel's in some ways, because her future is basically set too. And it just seems like it's going to be a hell of a lot more of the same. So she's got nothing to base this confidence on, basically. And then doubling down, she lives in a world that says women are supposed to agree and obey. And she, like you said, just goes right up and is like, yeah, no, this is wrong. You're wrong. You're a liar. You like, it's honestly incredible.
I almost wonder if like Jasmine is sort of like the epitome of like what happens when you leave a woman completely alone for most of her life. This is what she grows into.
I'm obsessed with that. Just leave her with her pet tiger and see what happens.
Leave her alone with her pet, and this is what she turns into, a fully confident, perfect, fantastic woman.
Wait, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with that. That's like an extension of like the man or the bear argument. Like,
exactly.
It's the tiger or the Jafar. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, everything you said I think I have here and totally agree with. And I love how aware she is of how women are viewed and is so strong in her confidence and her intelligence. Like when she says to Aladdin, like, did you think I was stupid? Like lies do not fly with her. And she already has him figured out. And yes, exactly what you said. I love the way that she knows how to play into that and play men's egos and kind of get around that. And I just think everything about her is just doubly impressive given the time and place that this film, of course, Agrabah is made up, but what it's based on, the time and place and laws that govern her, it makes all of it all the more impressive. And she just never gives up on her convictions. Like, even when Jafar has fully taken power, she's still throwing wine in his face and being like, never will I obey you. Never will I'm obsessed with it.
I love her. So let's talk about this next trait, compassionate, which is a feeling of showing sympathy or concern for others with a desire to alleviate their stress. I think it's very interesting that this particular character trait was assigned to Jasmine because
Agree.
like, let's face it, there are a lot of Disney princesses that show compassion. So why her? Why Jasmine above Cinderella or Belle? There has to be something deeper, something more specific that is revealed in this word by attaching it to Jasmine. And I think it actually has to do with her status.
Yes.
Jasmine is a born and bred princess. She wasn't someone who was of the people who married into royalty like Cinderella, nor was she royalty that was raised as a common citizen of the kingdom like Aurora or even Rapunzel. She is royalty, raised by royalty, kept hidden from everything outside of the palace walls. By all rights, she would be the one princess that we would most easily excuse showing less compassion just because of how unfamiliar she is with the rest of the world. And yet, she is compassionate. And I think that comes from Jasmine's deeply rooted sense of justice. If someone who is compassionate shows sympathy or concern for others with a desire to alleviate their distress, where Jasmine shines is in that action to alleviate distress and correct injustices. We see this in the very first scene with her in the palace, where she tells the Sultan that the law dictating that she must marry royalty through an arranged marriage is wrong, which, yes, it serves her own interest, but it is also advocating for future women who will be in her position. And at the end of the scene, she sees the doves who, like her, are caged, and she identifies their captivity as a form of distress and immediately takes action to release them. We see her compassion in the market when she is disguised as a commoner and comes across a hungry child. She inadvertently puts herself at risk in trying to feed the child because she never questions her responsibility to help alleviate his hunger. And then another example of her compassion is in her own distress about Aladdin's capture after everything that takes place in the market. She appeals to Jafar and advocates on Aladdin's behalf because he has been unlawfully detained and is wrongly being punished. When she finds out that Jafar had Aladdin put to death, she is visibly distraught and weeping. But her compassion doesn't even stop there. She then tells the Sultan of what went down with Aladdin, whom she now believes to be dead, in an effort to never let Jafar carry out an unlawful sentence again. And it works because the Sultan fully takes Jasmine's compassionate appeal to heart and tells Jafar that he is not to operate like that anymore. So I suppose, if we were looking at like a different side of her compassion, if we were looking at a place where her compassion stumbles, I guess it's probably at that moment in the market where her compassion and her naivete clash together and she like inadvertently steals. Ideally, we want someone who is compassionate and still operating within laws and rules and whatnot. But then you could also say that it should be unlawful for any child to be hungry, and to not take immediate action is contributing harm. So yeah, again, this is if we're really needing to find something wrong with Jasmine's compassion or where it trips her up a bit, that's what I would say. But I think it's really, really interesting that compassionate was chosen for Jasmine, because I think it's her compassion in spite of everything that's been stacked against her.
Yeah, and everything that she is taught is like, you must marry a prince, like you must remain within this social strata, and she just doesn't.
She just doesn't.
She doesn't follow it.
She just doesn't.
I agree. That's what I was catching on to as well. It's like she's unconcerned with social standing when it comes to treating people with kindness. And as it relates to who she will marry, she sees people for themselves despite coming from a highly privileged background where she was basically taught otherwise. And I think like the original iteration of this character was supposed to be very materialistic. So I feel like they've assigned this to her in like focusing on that change in who
Mhm.
she was going to be, which I really like.
I'm
Also,
glad that they changed that.
oh, me too. Me too. One part where her compassion stood out was when she tells Aladdin that she understands when he says that he needs to stop pretending and can't marry her. Like
Oh,
personally, if I
yes.
was in love with a man that I wanted to be with and like we had just gone through all of that and then he was like I can't do it. I'd be like you're doing it. I don't care about your morals. Like I want you to be with like I would be like too bad. I totally would. You know I would.
I mean, in some ways, you kind of did.
I have. I've done it, okay? So she is very much able to value his concerns and needs even when they're basically to her detriment. So I really had to give her that. I would not have been understanding. And she was like, "I understand." Wouldn't have been me. And yeah, again, trying to look at the other side of this. You know, Jasmine's adventure into the marketplace has to do, it's with her own desire for freedom rather than like, a desire to see what life is really like for her people. I say this because of other versions of the character that I'll talk more about later. And that's okay because, like I said, when she's there, her instinct is to treat everyone with kindness. She uses manners with everybody. Like, I put respect on that. But, Jasmine sees hungry children and doesn't do anything about it when she returns to the palace. Although, like you said, we
that's
see her
true.
racked by guilt and sadness when she believes that she caused Jafar to sentence Aladdin to death. I'd say that's a pretty normal human reaction, not necessarily an overly compassionate one. Aside from that guilt, her experience in the marketplace, her first time coming face to face with her subjects and their struggles, it doesn't really seem to occupy very much of her brain space after that. And
I mean, playing devil's advocate here, or Jasmine's advocate, I will say I would probably be pretty distracted by this like good-looking guy who I was
would
vibing with, who
too.
was
I
getting
would
put to death
too.
and everything like that. That I'm like, no offense, but the
My
starving
problems
children
would
might
probably come
slip
first.
my mind.
I get it. I get that. But it's also like she has
I like to
this-
think that once she takes over, she goes and helps the
Yes,
children.
I do believe that. But it's interesting that she has this ability to see what is wrong with the traditional laws of the land, but that doesn't seem to extend to the ability to see what is wrong, like with the suffering of the people of Agrabah that she saw. Like you, what? Like you kind of
Well, she married one of the suffering.
She like unsuccessfully gave this kid an apple and like that was it. I don't know. I agree with the line of thinking of like that her compassion does come like she is from this privileged background and really turns that on its head in a lot of ways. But that did bother me. I'm like, you could very much do something about that. And you just moved on with like, you know, Aladdin and,
I mean, her charity case was Aladdin. Aladdin's her charity case.
Damn.
She's like, I did my time.
Damn.
She's like, you want me to help the poor? I just took the
I will help
poorest of you
a
and
poor.
married him.
I will
I
help
helped
a
a poor. Oh my God. And then the last characteristic is adventurous, which is willing to take risks or to try out new methods, ideas, or experiences. Someone disposed to cope with the new and unknown. I think the part of adventurous that most applies to Jasmine is her willingness to take risks and cope with the unknown, more so than trying out new methods of ideas, like that part of the definition. Jasmine is a risk taker. She jumps headfirst into situations. We see this in every single time that she, a woman, challenges the patriarchal systems that are designed to contain and silence her. Talking back the way that she does to a male royal advisor like Jafar or even the Sultan, regardless of the fact that he's her father, because that doesn't necessarily mean anything when challenging the authority of a crown, that could come with great personal risk to her. Banishment, being married off against her will, or worse. But beyond that type of risk taking, she's also someone who will bravely step into the unknown and, be game for things that are new or different for her. When Jasmine leaves the palace, she is prepared to never return home. She is sure of her choice to leave because it matches her values. She believes that she is not meant to be stuck behind walls, and so she goes to seek a future where she has more control of her own destiny. Now, That journey is short-lived when she runs into trouble with Aladdin and the guards, but her intent was to run away into the unknown. And in terms of being game for new things, I mean, she has no hesitation in following a brand new person, Aladdin, home and literally leaping off buildings or pole vaulting from one rooftop to the next. She heard that "Do you trust me?" and was like ready to go. Overall, Jasmine is just kind of like in it when it comes to adventures with Aladdin. She goes on a magic carpet ride with him around the world to all kinds of new civilizations to her, exploring foreign sights and having the best time all the while. And with Aladdin, she is very willing to take his suggestions and jump into the unknown when he intervenes at the market to improv her out of trouble, which also, Miss Jasmine, she's the great yes and. She throws herself right into play acting and worshiping Abu as the Sultan, referring to the camel as a doctor. That was her and. She just decided to do that.
Honestly, it was very, very excellent.
And then her pièce de resistance is where she throws herself into a very high risk, high reward scenario at the end of the film with Jafar, trying to convince him that she's in love with him. So, yeah, I think the part of the definition of adventures that really sticks out for Jasmine is that risk-taking aspect and willingness to jump into the new or the unknown. All of that said, I don't know if adventurous is necessarily the best word for Jasmine.
Yeah.
And this especially rings true when directly comparing her to Rapunzel, who shares that characteristic and very clearly goes on a traditional adventure in her film, being the protagonist and everything. I think outgoing might capture Jasmine a little bit better, since her willingness to take risks and that more extroverted, direct quality about her shines a bit brighter when talking about adventurous.
Yeah, this isn't a direct correlation and maybe it would be redundant, but I was almost like independent, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so independent. But yes, I agree. The things I picked up on where it's really strong have to do with the risks, and especially in confronting the men in her life and never stopping. But interestingly, I have like a different perspective on her because when I was on The Wish, one of the stage shows was Aladdin. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But in that Disney Cruise Line version of the character and in the live action remake, we focus more on Jasmine's interest in maps and in seeing the world, longing for adventure. And that feels like it's missing here for me. Like those versions of Jasmine feel very adventurous to me. Not as much here. And yeah, Jasmine longs, of course, to venture outside the palace walls, and she absolutely makes it happen. But the simplicity of leaving, not really having to outsmart a Mother Gothel type, just putting on a cloak and climbing the wall with some help from Raja, of course, it makes me wonder why she didn't do it sooner. She's always known that marriage was going to be forced upon her. So why did it take so long to want to physically escape that? Or why didn't pure curiosity drive her out sooner? Pure curiosity about what her kingdom is actually like. That to me would feel more like someone who is adventurous. So yeah, it doesn't feel like quite the right fit for me, for her.
Yeah. That's why I'm like outgoing.
Yeah. Independent, outgoing.
Or direct.
Bold. What about bold?
Yeah, bold.
Yeah. Whoever had to do these words, I don't know. I do not envy them. It's very tricky.
I mean, I think that they were trying to like allude to a whole new world with adventurous.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, but no, I'm like, she's just, I find her, it's the risks.
Yeah.
I think bold is right. Or daring.
Daring. I like daring. And that feels like the right match for Aladdin, is someone who's daring. Yeah. All
right, let's talk about characteristics for Miss Rapunzel.
Okay, let's do that. So her first characteristic is creative. We obviously all know what that means, but it's relating to or involving the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. So, all right, we obviously need to kick this off by noting that Rapunzel is completely self-taught in a mind-blowing number of art forms. Let's just talk about that. Here we go. Painting, guitar playing, knitting, cooking, baking, ballet, pottery, ventriloquy, candle making, paper mache, sewing, and sketching. Excuse me? Like what? This girl only had a few books to possibly reference and her own damn brain, and she learned to do all of that. People like to make a lot of jokes about, the pandemic and, no, we know what Rapunzel felt like. And I can promise you that none of us learned as many new creative skills as this. And we had like the world at our fingertips in order to do that. It's pretty amazing. Like, take a moment to imagine if this was a modern day news story. 18-year-old is trapped in her home by a manipulative stranger and emerges a self-educated painter and artist. Like, we would all be like, what do you mean? It's kind of insane. Yeah. If we go back to the original ideas and imagination aspects of creativity, Rapunzel's entire reality has been self-created, with, of course, a little bit of help from Mother Gothel. But anything that hasn't been impressed upon her by Gothel has been created in her mind through her own imaginings. She has decided that goodness, trustworthiness, and acceptance are important qualities, and she's basically created what those even mean without any outside influence. Like, she just has, her world is entirely self-made. It's wild. Rapunzel also inspires creativity in others. The ruffians are able to get in touch with their creative aspirations when they're in her presence. And she allows Flynn to imagine a world where he, as Eugene, is enough. She even has Mother Gothel chefing up some hazelnut soup. It's contagious. It really is. And Rapunzel's imaginative mind also feels like the thing that ultimately allows her to recall her true identity. She's able to look at herself in the crown and for a moment see beyond what's in the reflection, and then later connect what she saw to other visual imagery and memories. And rather than stepping back from the mirror and kind of shaking her head and thinking like, I must be losing my mind, she trusts and believes in her own vision. And that is honestly the mark of a true artist. One thing that I will say I wish is that Rapunzel's artistic spirit was taken one step further. I wish that in some way her dream, or maybe her new dream, included this creative, artistic side of herself. Just like Belle is the patron princess of bookworms and Tiana is the patron princess of chefs and business owners, I wish Rapunzel could have become the patron princess of artists. Because she is at such a disadvantage to other princesses in terms of life experience, I do understand why her dreams needed to literally be like, see the sky, like touch the grass, be outside, fall in love. But it doesn't stop me from wanting a little more that sets her apart in terms of creativity, aside from her hobbies. Like, how could she have saved the day with something creative? Or it's part of, I don't know, I wanted it to be part of her goals a little bit more.
Maybe Flynn will get an art studio that's by the Shimmering River for her.
I was going to say,
And she can paint away all of her trauma.
For those of you who
and then
haven't
he'll
read,
have bat wings.
Corn of Thorns and Roses. So yeah, I don't know how they would have done it, but I do wish it was taken one step further. But she absolutely, there's no denying that she is creative.
I mean, I like that at least in sort of the storytelling aspect, the painting and the creativity does have a full circle moment, even if it's very small, and it's in her discovery that she is the lost princess, of realizing that she has been subliminally creating all of these suns everywhere, that has been coming from her.
Very true.
So it's a little thing. It's not as overt as oh, my dream being that, which I think is completely valid. But I am glad that at least that thread does sort of come back in an interesting way.
And I feel like it's also affected, her artistry has also affected the whole aesthetic of the film too. Let's be real.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I also just think that what really sort of sets this characteristic apart is how Rapunzel uses her creativity outside of just artistic expression. Mm-hmm. How she takes on different problems with creative solutions, even just with her hair.
Yeah.
Throughout the film, we see her use her hair to rappel from the tower rafters, to paint hard-to-reach areas, create a makeshift lift for Mother Gothel to ride up the tower, bind Flynn Rider to a chair for an interrogation, swing around a tree, grapple and swing from wooden beams during the escape from the dam, illuminate a dark cave to identify a current to escape death by drowning, many, many things.
Turning a frying pan into a weapon.
Yes, I have that too. I'm like, we see her come up with other things. I'm like, she gets creative about leveraging Flynn's satchel to get a guide to the lanterns, all the way to weaponizing a frying pan to protect herself when an intruder comes in. So yeah, those are things that I have.
Yeah, that's a great fit for her. So yes to this one.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. So next we have positive. And so you could define this as hopeful, optimistic, or confident, or focusing on the good aspects of a situation rather than the bad.
I want to add a little bit more to this definition too from Merriam-Webster, where I was looking too, where it said characterized by affirmation, addition, inclusion, or presence.
Ooh,
which I think is a really, really interesting way of thinking about positive.
I like that. So you could say that her willingness to focus on the positive aspects of her, basically unbeknownst to her, captivity is sort of the downside to positivity because it causes her to remain in a situation that's unhealthy and wrong. I like it in here, she says. And it's not that I don't believe her. I do believe that she has made as good of a life for herself as she can in that kind of setting, and that she makes her days as enjoyable as she can. But When Will My Life Begin is filled with a sense of monotony and almost manic busyness that I think Rapunzel uses to remain in denial. Now, if we look at this through the lens of an abusive relationship, any kind, you can also say that Rapunzel's positivity is her greatest power because she uses it to mentally survive and get through each day. And I think that's really, really important to remember. Rapunzel emerges from her tower and runs into basically every frightening or dangerous thing that Mother Gothel ever warned her about, but she never allows it to deter her from what she wants. And she never even has this moment of like, wow, the world really is a terrible place. I'm constantly on the run or trying not to drown or be captured. We never see her down in the dumps, and this viewing of the film that I had this most recent time really made me think, wow, I would have been so over this day at this point. I would have been terrified. I would have been sad. And she had to swing by her hair to survive just one too many times. And it really never put a frown on her face. Like, yes, she had feelings of guilt, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But she never let any of that stuff get her down. I also think that her willingness to see the good in Eugene is beautiful. Even though she describes him as her guide for the first part of their journey, she's never truly keeping him at arm's length. Despite knowing he is a thief, she trusts that she can make a deal with him and that he will follow through. The moment she thinks he's betrayed her and sailed away after the lanterns is soul-crushing because we see in her eyes the crumbling of a very deep belief that Eugene could be trusted. I also love the way that she says, "Was he a thief too?" when he describes the Flynn Rider of his childhood. It is so absolutely judgment-free and pure. She just kind of like takes like being a thief as like a job that somebody has. She takes people as they are and allows only their actions to create her ideas of them. Haven't any of you ever had a dream? She asked the ruffians. She just has this ability to dig for and connect with parts of people that are good, despite how they might appear on the outside. Also, a small thing, but animals love Rapunzel. They say that animals can easily read a person's true nature, and I think her goodness and positivity is evident to them. And she recognizes that in them in turn, like her fantastic introduction to Maximus. That's like one of my favorite scenes ever. And I also think that Rapunzel's positivity takes on a confident edge after her journey into the outside world. Once she finds out who Gothel really is, I just love her line, "I will fight. I will never stop trying to get away from you." Her positivity isn't all, oh, the world's wonderful and my dreams are going to come true. It has a scrappiness to it that I love, like when she says to Gothel, "You were wrong about the world and you were wrong about me." Rapunzel becomes so convicted in herself and her positive belief about the world by the end of this film. And it's a real journey to get there, which is why it's so gratifying. She is so torn apart by what Gothel will think of her when she first leaves the tower and goes on a journey toward becoming quite confident that she knows what's best for her and that her positive convictions are true and correct. I also think there's a really strong connection between the sun, which is where Rapunzel derives her power from, and her positivity. After she's back in the tower, after she believes that Flynn has betrayed her, Gothel says of the outside world, if it finds even the slightest ray of sunshine, it destroys it. As Gothel walks away, Rapunzel opens her hand to reveal the sun pendant that Flynn had bought her in the kingdom. And it's obviously symbolizing her holding on to hope and joy and her positive, sunshiny view of the world. And the image of the sun is what catapults her into the series of flashbacks that help her realize that she is the lost princess. She is reminded of her true self when she holds on to hope and positivity. It's the core of who she is.
Oh. You did such a good job with that I'm like, I don't really have much to add. Like, the only thing that I was saying is I think that as someone who's positive, they're someone who believes in best outcomes and brings out the best in other people by appealing to their inherent goodness. And so I was just like looking at the ways in which she brings out the best in everyone that she interacts with. She reroutes Flynn Rider's entire trajectory, helping him embrace the softer parts of Eugene that he didn't think mattered. She encounters the ruffians and the snuggly duckling, and, you know, as they literally are going to tear Flynn to pieces, she shouts, "Find your humanity."
Yes,
and
she does.
From this one comment about dreams and aspiration, she brings them into her world, which that's that inclusion part of positivity that I think is so important, where she's like, there's space for you. She's actively making space for people. She lets them embrace all the hidden best parts of themselves. Even with Maximus, her positivity shifts him from being very rigid.
I love that
to
scene.
opening himself up to the goodness that can exist in people that he may perceive as bad, even as a horse. Like, she's just constantly including people, adding them to her circle, making them feel welcome. And it's even in as simple as a scene as the kingdom dance, when she's literally bringing all of the people of the kingdom into the dancing circle. And like, yes, sometimes positivity can border on naivete. Her desire to believe in the best outcome sometimes causes her to overlook some of the not so good outcomes that are a bit more obvious or likely. And this is, you know, in many ways what Mother Gothel has taken advantage of, and what has contributed to Rapunzel not necessarily questioning Mother Gothel's intentions. But I'm always wary to truly shit on anyone for being positive, because I do think that people are inherently good. And I'm not going to justify people shitting on that.
It goes back to what people like to make fun of Disney princesses for in the first place that I think we really want to defend. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to adventurous, which is the characteristic that Rapunzel shares with Jasmine. So the definition that I had grabbed for that is willing to take risks or try out new methods, ideas, or experiences. So obviously, Rapunzel's story is centered around her willingness to try a new experience, leaving the tower she has lived in with only one other human being for 18 years. There's no underplaying this, especially psychologically, and we'll talk more about that when we get to how Rapunzel inspires us. It's especially impressive given the way Mother Gothel has painted the world for her. It sounds like a truly terrible place. Once Rapunzel decides that her 18th birthday is the year she'll see the floating lanterns herself, she's willing to try any method to make it happen. She tries the more straightforward way via Mother Gothel first and asking permission, and then she pivots into making a deal with a complete stranger when that doesn't work. But I don't know. I would call her more of a dreamer than an adventurer. It's a good fit, but I guess it's because like someone like Moana brings the word adventurous to mind. I say this because Rapunzel's fear and hesitation around what she considers a betrayal of Gothel remind me more of the risks that we weigh when we want to achieve a dream. Sometimes having to disappoint people we love and choose things that are scary in order to achieve that dream. But I will say I love the scrappy way that Rapunzel takes risks physically and defends herself from the results of her risk-taking. Like we were talking about, from frying pan smacks to the face to using her hair as a weapon, Rapunzel is truly ready to fight you. And to me, that does signify the nature of an adventurer, someone aware that risk is involved when you venture into the unknown. Could we wonder why Rapunzel didn't want to leave the tower sooner? I mean, sure, you can always take the devil's advocate position on that. Maybe compared to Jasmine, who knew she was a princess and had some level of protection and power, Rapunzel had much more fear of the consequences of escaping. So we can kind of defend that choice in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting the way that you approached this. I have kind of approached similarly. I do think dreamer is a really, really good word for her, especially because they gave
That's her
dreamer to
theme.
Aurora,
Oh, right.
which pissed you off.
I did. I did. I
Whatever.
remember that.
But I was out of the two, out of Jasmine and Rapunzel together, I was vibing with adventure more for Rapunzel than I was
I
necessarily
agree.
Jasmine.
Yeah.
And I think that some of those little moments where it's like, is this adventure? Is it not? Plays in her favor a bit. So, like, Rapunzel's entire trajectory in this story is an adventure. She is definitely advantaged by being the protagonist of the story.
Right.
So she follows more of the typical hero's journey than Jasmine necessarily does. But every step she takes outside her tower is a risk. It's all new, it's all unknown. And one of the most beautiful things that I think we see is her struggling with the adventurous side of herself. Pushing yourself to trying new things isn't easy. It doesn't come naturally to people. And I think Rapunzel offers moments to us where we can see the highs and lows of living in such a state of expansion. We get to see her best day ever scene where she's shifting between guilt and excitement. We get the tender, soft moments of regret when she is with Flynn in the cave and by the campfire. And then we have the fear that even comes when she encounters the Stabbington brothers, in the fog and everything.
Yeah.
But despite having a full range of emotions that she has about her journey, she's still trying new things. She doesn't stop being adventurous. She's just feeling things about her adventurousness, which I think is interesting to see. It makes it feel very three-dimensional. And yeah, like there's no bigger risk than leaving your only human relationship and sole caregiver to go outside. But, she's got this spark that's driving her forward. And
Yeah, that's what, and I think we'll talk about this when we kind of get to the end of this, is like Rapunzel's like embodiment of these things in her journey is actually very nuanced.
Yeah.
I like we see her struggle a lot, and I really like that. We see, like you said, the downsides of some of these and what makes them difficult, which I really, really enjoy.
And her adventurousness and her fears and all the emotions that come around that allows her positivity to then play in.
Yeah.
So a lot of these characteristics are then creating opportunities for the other characteristics to shine, which is actually like really cool to see.
I agree.
Let's talk about design. So we'll hop back to Jasmine. So I think the biggest thing, Jasmine is the first princess of color. And yes, there are a lot of valid critiques of her character design that were made at the time of the film and now, where it feels like Aladdin and Jasmine are rooted in a more traditionally white design rather than a design that authentically captures the ethnicity of Jasmine. But that being said, it was also important for Disney to venture outside of their solely white catalog of Disney princesses without heightening specific features to the point of caricature or stereotype or even offense in the way that some of these characters were elevated to a point of offense. So while I don't think that Jasmine's character design is the end-all be-all for capturing a non-white princess, it was an important step in the animation process to see new ways these types of characters could look. We would not have arrived at the designs for Pocahontas, Mulan, or Tiana without first taking the step outside of white-centered designs with Jasmine. And we certainly wouldn't have gotten to where we are now with characters like Moana, Raya, Mirabel, or even Asha without the design of Princess Jasmine. So while the design I think is flawed, I think it was an extremely necessary step, and steps are always going to be made with some mistakes along the way. But we do have to look at the direction in which they're going. And I do think that they were going in the right direction by doing this. And then just more surfacey design thing.
Yes.
Her hair is fire. We have a
She's got great hair.
completely new length of hair that we have not seen yet in a Disney princess character, styled in a completely new way with the exaggerated ponytail, the crown, the hair ties. The color palette for Jasmine is immaculate.
Oh, so good.
The turquoise, the sapphire blue gem, the gold accents, like that is one of those color palettes that you can just pick out anywhere. I think they matched it really, really well in the same way that like Ariel is one that you can pick out anywhere. Jasmine is the one that you can pick out anywhere. She also has a completely new costume design, and it differs greatly from the other princesses in the Disney Princess Collection, even now, because she is the only princess whose main costume features pants, which is a fantastic design choice for a character whose personality is so driven by a desire for equality and freedom for women. So, yeah, I love me some pants.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, this is such a difficult thing for me because I really like, again, she's just so beautiful.
She's so pretty.
She's so pretty, and I love the colors that she's wearing while also, and I love looking at the outfit while also knowing that it's
completely unattainable.
It's not attainable, and it's also not historically accurate. I mean, Disney princess costumes aren't really. That's why people have so much fun drawing princesses in their historically accurate costumes. But, this one has her walking around in a bra, basically. I mean, and that's an issue only because, as usual, the body standards communicated through her design are just impossible to attain. But that's a Disney princess-wide issue that we're still working on. There's also that sexualization of her at times that feels problematic, seeing as she is the first princess of color.
It's sort of like,
and like you were
rides
talking about
a little bit on fetishization almost.
It does. There are parts of it that make me feel, I mean, it's Jafar, but it does make me feel uncomfortable. And like you said, the beauty standards are very white centric. But on the flip side, like Courtney Reed, who played Jasmine originally on Broadway, talked about how important Jasmine was to her because it was the first time she saw a Disney princess who looked like her. And yes, it was done absolutely imperfectly, but there is just like, she's such an important moment in the Disney princess lineup. And apparently, back to the surface level of things, when they were being drawn and animated and created for the first time, Disney ended up making Aladdin much more handsome and dashing in order to measure up to how gorgeous Jasmine was turning out to be, because he needed to be like on her level.
Yeah. Let's talk design for Rapunzel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay. We have to start with her hair, obviously.
I know, yeah.
I mean, we could do an entire episode
It's the
on
biggest
this.
challenge.
Yes.
Like for
that's
Rapunzel.
That's the thing. Yes. Like the textural detail of Rapunzel's hair is insane. And so I think, first of all, any quote unquote warmth lost to computer animation is made up for in the hair design. And the hair is kind of the main character here, so it makes perfect sense for Rapunzel to be animated in a medium that can depict it to its full advantage. Without a meticulous design, I think Rapunzel as a princess or just a character would have fallen a bit flat, because attached to her head is basically another being with a life of its own that is like totally the biggest part of her story. Like I said, we could do an entire episode on the animation of Tangled, and we'll do it at some point, obviously.
I also like kind of did talk about it during my Heck Yes Disney Plus marathon where I did the animation stuff. I talked a lot about this too.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I could go on forever about Tangled and the animation of Tangled.
I know.
Because
We're
I think it's like
kind
of flawless.
Yeah. Yes. So go back to that, but we will obviously continue this conversation always. But to talk specifically about her hair, it's made up of over 100,000 strands. Also, first of all, I didn't really cite my sources, but I read a great LA Times article on this. And the technology for her hair alone took a whole team of software engineers to perfect. And the directors actually studied a hair Bible from Glen Keane of all of the best 2D Disney hair. So they looked at Ariel, the Beast, and Pocahontas for inspiration. And the animators actually, great hair.
That is
great hair.
That's the best Disney hair. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Jasmine also deserves to be in there. Jasmine has such fantastic hair.
Yeah, though it is kind of like doesn't really.
It's flatter.
It kind of it stays in one design, kind of like pretty much, but like. Like when Belle takes the lock of like the beast's hair in her hands.
Please.
Or like when
it's
Pocahontas's hair strand like goes in front of her face. Are you kidding me?
So good. And Ariel's bangs. I mean, I can't. The animators also wore feet and feet of fishing line attached to their own heads to know what hair that long would feel, look, and move like. They brushed wigs. They used hair models. Like, they did it all for this hair. And the care taken with her hair alone slowed the film down a ton, and Disney correctly decided that it was worthwhile. And I respect the hell out of that. I also think Rapunzel's outfit is very nice. I know it sounds silly, but we needed a princess in like purpley lilac tones. We didn't really have it yet. Like we talked about, Disney princesses need to have their own iconic, recognizable kind of color blocking. And since Rapunzel was going to be another blonde, purple was the move for her in order to make her distinct in the lineup. And then like paired with the flowers in her hair in the kingdom when it's braided, I am obsessed. It's so like stunning. I just want to look at it.
Also, I just love that we have like another silhouette of a dress in this costume. Like it's like that and Snow White. Those are the two dresses that I want to wear in the parks because I'm like, oh, I can move, I can breathe. I have like air that's coming up underneath as opposed to wearing one of those huge gowns. Like she's not wearing a gown.
Yes, she's on the move. And I will say when it comes to this dress too, like computer animation comes in for the win here too, because the detail that we get in the texture is so beautiful. From like the tiny lace that's around the neckline, the sheer sleeves, the silky skirt. Like I also love that it's this like multi-piece look with so much texture. Like we have the puff sleeve corset top, the sheer sleeve, the silky like multi-layer skirt. There's just a lot going on with it, and the animation really makes the most of it. There's just a lot to see.
I think that's one of the coolest things that Disney has done with this computer animation, because the way that they create textures, really so much of what it is just how light moves off of it or reflects off of it, or how it interacts with the fabric. I would like in my Art of Frozen book, they talk in depth about textiles for that, because it's all just like how does light hit this fabric in order to evoke our brains saying, oh, I know that fabric, that's cotton, or oh, that's satin, or that's fleece. Cool. It's so interesting.
Well, it's very interesting that you bring that up, because one thing I will say is that the concept art for Tangled is probably my favorite Disney concept art ever, and it has so much to do with light. And the concept art is unreal. That was another one of my sources, was Claire Keen's website, which you should go look at. If you look at it, there were lots of options for early versions of Rapunzel in terms of what she was wearing, from like sea foam green gowns to a much more like ragged rustic look with Rapunzel and things like fingerless gloves. Like there were a lot of options, and I cannot look away from the concept art every time I bring it up. It really makes me wonder a little bit what would have happened if Rapunzel had been hand drawn in even something different, a more classical style. I'm not saying it should be changed in any way, but I just have to take a moment and talk about, like, there were so many good ideas for Rapunzel. Yeah. I don't know how they decided. And like you mentioned, there are ways in which she feels more relaxed than the other princesses before her bare feet, the cut of her dress, even just like her freckles. She looks a little bit more like a real girl.
And she's pigeon-toed.
She is. Yes. And I love that Mandy Moore describes her as bohemian. That feels very right to me. We needed that in the Disney Princess lineup. I will say her huge Disney Princess eyes are actually a little bit too much for me, especially when I see how proportional Flynn's face is and she's near him. One or two times it became a little bit uncanny valley to me with the size of her eyes. It was just something I noticed this time. Yeah, they were just a little big for me.
No, they work for me.
I will say, again, I am so attracted to the hand-drawn, like very like caricature-y versions of Rapunzel that we see in the end credits and some concept art as well. And I just, I wouldn't change a thing, but my imagination goes.
It's the black bodice. It's the black bodice. That's what
and
does
just
it
like
for
the
you.
upturn of her nose, something about it was very spicy. And I wondered what kind of edge she would have had if she had been hand-drawn. But again, wouldn't change a thing, but my imagination does run wild when it comes to that.
Though we kind of get a little bit of that with Tangled the series.
We do.
Because she does have a little bit of the sharper, upturned nose with that. The biggest thing that I was really calling out in design was the hair. It's a great color. It's the way it moves, the way it glows. They literally made magic manifest in her body.
Oh,
because
so true.
That's the task.
So
and it's
true.
like they did it. Like one of my favorite images in the whole film is when Rapunzel's hair is flowing in the wind outside the tower when Gothel leaves for the first time. And it's that wide shot. And it just like catches the breeze because it's just so evocative of Rapunzel's growing desire to leave, but feeling tethered to the tower. The hair is just a direct reflection of her creativity and her adventurous spirit. Like the design feels very rooted even in these characteristics that we assigned to her years and years later.
Right. Ugh. Yeah, it's so true. Like there's magic manifesting within her actual body, which is no small feat. Yeah.
Yeah. Which we don't have many protagonists who do that. We've got Elsa, we've got Rapunzel.
I was thinking about that and I didn't really know what part of this conversation to put that in. So I think I dropped it in a little bit of the role model inspiration section. But yeah, that's a major thing. She's got magical powers. That takes things to a different place.
It's like the cast of Encanto, Frozen, Rapunzel. But Rapunzel's like the first one to do it.
Yeah, she was.
In this type of animation.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about role models, how much they inspire us, how much they encourage us. I'm just going to say, I think Jasmine is a great role model, even if her body type is, like most Disney princesses, nigh on unattainable. But I think, as I mentioned before, she has been assigned one of the most important characteristic traits in the entire Dream Big Princess initiative, and that is confidence. This is such an underrated trait and one that is so very easily diminished, especially in women and girls. Jasmine is unapologetic in who she is, what she believes in, and in putting those beliefs into action. She is a character who stands up against injustices and voices her dissent, not just to the villain, but to the heroes and the people that she loves. Seeing Jasmine push back against her father and even our protagonist, Aladdin, I think is so important because it shows us that not everyone is without fault. And it's important to use your voice to keep pushing the good people even further in the direction of what is right. Jasmine is just really fucking cool. And every time I watch this movie, I cannot wait for her to come back on screen because her presence and her confidence is one of the best parts of this film.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's so interesting. Like, you don't focus on Jasmine's journey as much sometimes, like when you're just sitting watching the movie for fun, because Aladdin's the hero. But it's so cool to think about it because her journey feels very much about questioning and resisting the patriarchy, which I'm like, that's going to tip me over the edge. I love when a woman does that. I can't resist. And I think the world that Jasmine is from is so key to appreciating just how bold that is to do. To me, she is the Disney princess to look to when you want to challenge the status quo and be an independent thinker. I can't stay here and have my life lived for me, she says. She is all about taking the reins. And like you were saying, that is so important in the Disney princess lineup. As I mentioned briefly before, I just saw Aladdin on the Disney Wish, and I'm a bit spoiled by the version of Jasmine that we get in that version. It's actually even more so than the one on Broadway. It's actually leagues ahead of that.
Wow.
I really liked this version of Jasmine. First of all, she got a fantastic song, but in this version, she is very intent on becoming the ruler of Agrabah. That is her goal. And she constantly expresses how much she cares for her people and believes that she is the one who has their best interests at heart, rather than the man she marries coming in and ruling a kingdom he doesn't truly know. I love that in that version, she has a real goal in mind, not just becoming free from a law, but becoming a ruler in her own right. Her fight becomes about something greater than herself, Unlike, let's say, Aurora or even Ariel, the issues of the crown are very tied to Jasmine's everyday life. So I do wish she was more motivated by like taking her place within that life as well. But again, it's also a 90-minute film. It's also not her journey. The stage show on The Wish is Jasmine's story, 100%. I thought it was fascinating and I was living for it. There's also been some talk, online about Jasmine's weaponization of her sexuality and it being a bad example for young girls and quote unquote not feminist. But I actually don't think it's that simple. It's a bold move for a woman of Jasmine's time, and I respect its boldness. Is the focus of her story mostly about romance and marriage? Yeah, but she makes change around it. It is the most important issue to her in that moment. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm not going to hold that against her. And then if we look at the bigger picture of inspiration as a Disney princess in the lineup, Jasmine does have a bit of a stronger hook, for lack of a better word, than Rapunzel. I am not a prize to be won. That's what goes on the Jasmine merch. It's about not letting yourself be reduced to a romantic conquest and not allowing choices to be made for you. It's pretty fire. And I think the last thing that she says, aside from singing at the end in the film, is, "I choose you, Aladdin." And I love that it ends with this statement from her. And I'm not a prize to be won. That is so important in this lineup of princesses. It cannot be discounted. It's so important. And I love it.
I know. I really love that you pointed out that last line being, "I choose you, Aladdin." Because so much of what her conflict and what the movie has been about is that she doesn't have a choice. And at the end, her final word is, I am making a choice.
Yeah.
I choose you,
It's not even
Aladdin.
like, I love you, Aladdin. It's, I choose you.
Yeah.
Give it to me. I love it.
All right. Now let's talk about Miss Rapunzel as a role model.
Rapunzel.
How she encourages and inspires us.
Yes. So I was definitely struck during this most recent viewing of Tangled by the way Rapunzel can really be a beacon of hope for anyone who has been stuck in a manipulative or even abusive relationship of any kind, not even romantic. We see Rapunzel struggle mightily with feelings of guilt, fear, and ambivalence about leaving her tower. I think that's part of the reason that Adventurous doesn't quite capture everything she is for me. Yes, she takes a risk on a new experience, but I think there is beauty in how much she hesitates and then moves through fear in doing so that Adventurous doesn't quite capture. She's up against more psychologically than most Disney princesses. It really struck me when I saw her gagged and chained by Gothel. The way that psychological manipulation turned physical was honestly terrifying. But Rapunzel resists in honestly really realistic ways, in the ways that she can, even when they might seem to us like she's giving in or she's being complacent. She lies when she needs to in order to protect herself. It's nuanced, but I think it's important. Rapunzel also controls what she can in her life. She charts the stars. She makes sense of the world with absolutely no help or outside experience. A gift like that, it has to be protected, is what Rapunzel says about her hair's healing power. And I really love the way that she values her gift. She is very aware of the fact that other people may want it and take advantage of her because of it. And I am all for women protecting themselves against that. She also never complains about her hair being cumbersome, and she uses it to help whenever she can. She really seems to embrace the thing that makes her special or what might seem odd to other people. But like we said earlier, most of all, Rapunzel is the only source of magic in this film. She's also one of the only Disney princesses who possesses magical powers, and she uses her power to heal and never really specifically to her own advantage. And knowing the power of her gift actually makes her more selfless. She's willing to give up her freedom, the thing that she wanted the most, for Flynn's life because she knows that it's a powerful bargaining tool. Going back to that concept of like a hook, the interesting thing about Rapunzel is that she doesn't necessarily have that hook per se, that one thing about her that other princesses have that is their iconic characteristic. We have the hair, of course. And then we have the, I've got a dream thing, but they didn't give dreamer as one of her words. Her journey, though absolutely epic in an emotional sense, is less epic than other princesses in terms of scope in some ways. we talk about this all the time. The struggle in this movie is so psychological. And it feels like what Rapunzel shows us is how to listen to our inner voice. Even if it shakes, even if it's this quiet, tiny, uncertain voice. And it's a quiet but powerful thing, but it's a very nuanced journey. So it's such an interesting thing in this aspect to put her up against Jasmine, whose thing is bold and big and clear. It's a very hard thing to compare.
I agree, because Rapunzel, I think, is also a fantastic role model. And it's because of how nuanced she is. It's because of how three-dimensional she is. We get to see so much of her. And for the reasons that I talked about in her adventurous characteristic, we get to see those highs and the lows in her reactions to her own personality. That's deliciously complex, and I think really important for people to see. We get a full spectrum of ways in which these characteristics can be displayed in Rapunzel, and even moments where she acts outside of them, but it's all a part of her. And like confident is for Jasmine, positive is my favorite trait here for Rapunzel.
Mm-hmm.
It is extremely underrated to look at the world and the people in it with optimism, especially right now where to be contrarian or nihilistic is cool or popular. I believe one of the greatest things that we can do for each other is to bring out the best in another person. It is a beautiful skill that is cultivated through an inclusive and constructive attitude. What can we build together? How can I see you more clearly? What part of you can I shine a light on? And Rapunzel is truly light made manifest. The combination of these three characteristics, I think, all really, really work together to build a radiant character that can guide us when things are dark. So I can't shit on that.
I know. And it's interesting. Something you said made me think about the fact that it's especially special because she's a more modern princess where the instinct could be to give her more of again, that a nihilistic edge in some way. And she doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And she's a more modern princess. And it's an interesting thing.
And people would say oh, she's the quirky princess. But I'm I don't even know if she's quirky anymore. Maybe when it first came out, we would be oh yeah, she's definitely quirky. But watching the film now, I'm especially because now we have Anna, and Anna has
right,
completely taken over that.
Exactly.
But I'm she's not quirky. She's just so
real.
Earnest. She's very genuine.
She has her heart on her sleeve. Yeah.
And so it's what am I? And now when we're trying to figure out who wins the showdown, it's we've got probably the most genuine Disney princess that's ever been created. The most three-dimensional, fully fleshed out, genuine Disney princess. And then we have this fucking badass motherfucker character that stands and has, I think confident may even be the most important characteristic in the Dream Big Princess campaign.
I agree with you on that. And it's it's so interesting. In other princess showdowns, we've, for fun, have both tried to turn these characteristics on their heads and be well, here's why it's detrimental. We've done it to all four of those princesses.
I didn't want to do it for these two.
We couldn't bring ourselves to do it to these two because I didn't have the heart. I couldn't do it. And it's just I guess moving into these final thoughts, it's I love the way that they both resist and rebel in the ways that they can within their specific situations and worlds. And I guess what I'm trying to think about is which princess do we love for her more separate from the film? Because they both come from two of the best Disney films of all time. And, it's also tricky because Jasmine is basically the only Disney princess who isn't the main character of her film. So she's put at a disadvantage in that way. But it's also just funny to think about all the things they have in common, too. They both fall for thieves. They're trapped in their homes. They've never seen a man their age before. We've got market/kingdom scenes with apples. It's just so, I like these two together. It's so interesting.
We've got these resisting power structures.
Yeah, in very different
happening.
ways.
When I think of Rapunzel with her, I won't stop, I will fight, and blah, blah. The way that she talks to Mother Gothel is the same. It's the same way that
as
Jasmine talks to
never.
Jafar.
I will never bow to you. Yeah. Oh, F. This is so terrible. This is going to be so painful for me.
I don't like this.
I don't like
actually
this
really
at all.
don't like this. I really like
hate
that we got to
this.
talk about these two, but I don't like this part.
Oh my God.
I mean, if we're looking at these three things, the character that I think most fits their traits between Jasmine and Rapunzel is Rapunzel.
Agree.
I think she fits her traits. But like when Jasmine fits confident, like there ain't nobody else. And then design-wise,
it's like
one like revolutionized what these characters
right, and then
like
one
in
is
this
like
new
a really good
generation,
artistic product.
Yeah. Well,
And
they both actually kind of are revolutionary.
They both are. And then it's like role model is like we were saying. Rapunzel's more nuanced as a role model, whereas Jasmine, here I can say to you in one sentence why she is a role model, especially for young girls.
Yeah.
But it's not a clear...
Rapunzel, I need a paragraph.
Right. Rapunzel is so excellent. Yes, she's great in the Disney Princess lineup, but she's more important as a three-dimensional Disney character, whereas Jasmine is important in the Disney Princess lineup specifically and what she offers and what was not there before she was there.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think, like if you were to take one of these two princesses out of the Disney Princess collection, I don't see how we can take Jasmine out of the Disney Princess collection.
I know. Again, maybe it's because Rapunzel doesn't know she's a princess. She doesn't get back to that until the last minute of the movie. Again, she's just this really important Disney character.
Yeah, like this
What
heroine.
is she to as this heroine, right? But what is she to the Disney Princess lineup? I think that's what I was getting at when I was like the art thing. Like I needed something to be like, this is what she is when you put her next to the other princesses.
Yeah.
Whereas I know what Jasmine is when you put her next to the other princesses and what role she fills.
Mm-hmm. We look at all these things and it's like, who has the bigger impact on Disney princesses?
Mm-hmm.
Like who's the quote unquote better Disney princess, or is it which is the one that leaves the impact that we're looking for?
I feel like it's the former because we're basing
Who's the better
Disney princess? Because we're talking about it in the lineup with these words is how we started this whole showdown concept.
Okay. If we're saying who is the better Disney princess overall, I think we would have to say Rapunzel.
Oh.
Because she's the one who fits those characteristics better than Jasmine
I see.
does.
Oh, well, this is so
based on those criteria.
Because I was going to say...
But if we're saying like, I hate saying this, but if Rapunzel disappeared from the Disney Princess collection tomorrow, I don't think it would have the same punch that Jasmine missing would.
Yes, because Jasmine pushes back against so many of the romantic concepts that people like to like make fun of Disney princesses for and just says no to them. And I think that's important. And I think, when I think of like being in the parks, yes, I love seeing Rapunzel, but I'm like, I want to see Rapunzel and Flynn because I love Tangled. Tying back to what you were saying of like, it's hard as it is to say if Rapunzel specifically disappeared from the lineup. It's hard to say. It's hard to say that. Like Aladdin came out the year I was born. And so like we can't even fully value the impact that she had on like living in a world where she didn't exist and then suddenly she did. And it was kind of major.
You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to look at it in two ways because it's the only way that I'm going to make it out of this episode.
I want out of this episode now. I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay. So, which of these princesses is better for the Disney Princess collection overall impact? Jasmine. Based on the criteria of what we set up today, even if we were distilling it down to, they both have a shared trait, adventurous.
Right.
If we distill it all, comes down to this. Which one better exemplifies that? Rapunzel. I think out of our criteria that we're talking about today, I think Rapunzel edges out Jasmine a little bit. We didn't have as many detrimental things to point out about her characterization,
Yeah.
about these traits showing up, about how well they suit her. And there was a lot of nuance to it. And I think we do have to honor that and respect that. And I think Rapunzel wins this particular showdown. But Jasmine, in terms of being a loss from the Disney Princess Collection, would be one that the Disney Princess Collection would not recover from.
Agree.
And for that, I abstain. I abstain from a verdict.
As do I. I will not. Absolutely not.
I abstain from a verdict. Thank you all for listening. But we will not come to a conclusion.
We'll totally ask listeners what they think. I will be happy to hear what they think. I really can't. I can't.
I can't do this one. So I abstain, and you abstain as
I
well.
abstain
Thank you
for
all
the
so
exact
much
same
for
reason.
listening.
That's it. Thank you. I do think in some way there will be people out there who, through what we have discussed, a clear answer will be there for them.
Yeah.
So let's find out what we want to hear what those are. Yeah, tell us.
Tell us what if you have a winner, if you have a clear winner, tell us who your winner is. Tell us why. What is the reasoning that sold you on it coming down one way or another? Because we just can't. We can't.
And you know what?
We're happy to give you all the evidence. We're happy to debate it. But in terms of giving a verdict, who am I to judge?
Who am I?
In the words of
Who
Pope
are
Francis.
me to judge? And also, like, if any of you said something that really convinces us, we can always take it back later down the line. But as of today, this day in 2025, when we are recording this episode, we abstain.
We abstain.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way all of our episodes download to your device. You don't miss out on anything. And then this is that moment. If you're happy that we abstained, or if you just loved the entertainment that you received in this episode, please hit 5 stars, leave a written review or a comment wherever you're listening to the podcast, and then share this episode with a friend who you think might enjoy it. Give a recommendation out on an Instagram story or something like that. It all is just really, really helpful for us in terms of growing our reach and getting more people to listen to the podcast. So thank you for taking the time that it takes to do that.
And please follow us on social media. Social media is going to be so important to this episode. That's where we want you to let us know what you think about this episode, which princess is the winner for you.
Don't text me. Don't DM me.
No. Yeah.
Make it public.
We want to make it a conversation for real, because I think people are going to have some strong feelings about this, and we want to see it all go down, because this is the first time we haven't fought about this, and I'm living for it. So we are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. As I mentioned, like, following us is such a huge thing that you can do that's free to support the podcast. Whenever people are looking for suggestions on those like reels and TikToks of podcasts or Disney related things, if you mention us, it goes those personal recommendations are everything. So thank you to those of you who have done that. And if you want even more Poor Unfortunate Podcast in your life, and if you want to write a thesis about this episode, go to the Poor Unfortunate Fam, which is our private Facebook group, because you will have a ready and willing audience there. We have over 100 members. We discuss these episodes. Sometimes we get into a little bit of a debate, which I always love, and I think this will be one of those times. And it's also a great way for Connor and I to learn a little bit more about you, what you want from the podcast. And it's just a happy little corner of the internet, and the only reason that I go on Facebook. So it will be really nice to meet you there.
And if you're looking for merch, the Poor Unfortunate shop is open. It's poorunfortunatepodcast.com/shop. T-shirts, hats, water bottles, all that good stuff. It's all available to you. And as I always say, it does take us a little bit of money to keep the podcast up and running and coming to you. We do have a PayPal account that is listed in our episode description and in the website links on our social media accounts. Truly, anything that you have to spare goes a long way for us. It could be $1, $5, $10, more than that. It could be a one-time donation. It could be a monthly donation. It all just goes right back into the podcast, helping us keep it free, helping us keep it ad-free for the most part. And to all of our monthly donors, thank you so much. We would not be able to do this without you. All right, so we will be back next with a tips and tricks episode that'll be coming your way down the line, where we're going to go through Caroline's experience on the Disney Wish.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. And until then, Beluga Sevruga.